Greetings, boys and girls, scholars and laymen, to another wonderful, entertaining, edutating edition of We All Be News Free Dixie for the 21st century. I'm your host with the mostest, Brother Ron, also known as R2C2H2, the artivist. This is day one of we call it Women's History Month. We just had Black History Month, so we are in day one of Women's History Month. And shout out to all the ladies making history and doing what they do. But we got a lot of things to talk about today. We got a special, or tonight rather, we got a very special in-demand guest, like one of our favorite guests of all time. It's one of our goated guests, a man who really needs no true introduction because, when he's on the scene, he owns the scene. And he is a king. Without further ado, the one and only Judge Joe Brown. How you doing, Judge?
I'm here in the house, young brother. In the house.
That's good, man. You are the man of the hour as usual. You got the internet going nuts. Like recently you said you announced you was running for mayor of Shelby County, Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
Come to
Yeah.
find out that the Republican Party wants no connection with you whatsoever.
That's not quite true. I got
Okay.
recruited by the local party, but it appears that certain select members of the local party, a very few, are in with some other people. So they went and behind the scenes up in the state. They went and knocked me and several other good candidates off of the ballot, and I suspect what's going on is they're RINOs, not real Republicans, or not really people dedicated to the proposition that the Republican Party needs to return to being a populist party from one dominated by certain businesses that didn't really care much about ordinary people. They don't like makeup. And I hadn't thought about it, but all across the state, there are a number of Republican office holders that are knocked out by the new rules. And as a matter of fact, President Trump himself would be knocked out by the rules. It says that if you had four opportunities, if you did not vote three times in a Republican primary in the last four opportunities you had, you were not deemed to be a true Republican. But for that matter, neither would Donald Trump nor Robert Kennedy Jr.
Right.
and a number of other people. And it's particularly bad up in some of the rural areas where the farmers up there who hold office do good work for their constituents. They don't tend to turn out for primaries because they're too busy with their agricultural needs and things
Okay.
that they have to do that way. So it's subject to an appeal, which will be this Thursday. I don't know, but some of us would like to raise a lot of heat because some good civil judges are getting knocked out who already hold the office and have demonstrated their competence and concern for ordinary people, and they are unable to run. Now, the weird thing about it, the way they wrote it, is they talk to people, recruit people, people in office are already in the party. So a primary comes around and they register as a Republican.
Hmm.
They may be the incumbent, but if they don't file a simultaneous petition to run as an independent and they get turned down as a Republican, they're off the ballot. And even though they may be the incumbent, they can't run for reelection.
Hmm.
Now you see how that works out crazy.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, one of my reasons for not voting the third time is frankly, I was just sick. I was
Mhm.
being treated for something, you know, I beat it so far, but cancer as a matter of fact, but I'm told I might die with it, but not of it. So but you get pretty sick when you get radiation treatment every day of the week for 9 weeks going. Makes you feel kind of bad. I voted in the main election, but it is what it is, and
Mhm.
that's what a lot of people have run into. Now, we had some plans to bring Memphis, Shelby County into the 21st century to use the hydroelectric potential of the river down here with modular generators so we didn't have to depend upon TVA's high prices. Do some things that the county could do to lean on Memphis Light Gas and Water to do something about delivering more reliable services. Take the medical programs, the group insurance plans that we have in place for employees, expand them and allow citizens to buy in, which would reduce the price for everybody. Do something about organizing communities to set up county-wide anti-crime networks involving the citizenry. Things like that would be of help. Doing something about these horrible potholes. Poplar
Mhm.
is a mess, but you can't do anything with Poplar because technically Poplar is a state highway, believe it or not. But it's
Mm.
always been my posture that either the city or the county ought to take the steps to do something about repaving that place and build the state. We also need somebody to say, hey, come right on in, audit all of this mess. It needs to be looked at because there's some really funny stuff going on. And somebody needs to be in place to make sure that happens. Things like county money and city money being used to finance the and pay for the construction of projects that do absolutely nothing for the citizenry, but yet enrich certain interest who seem to have been behind this move because they got scared. I don't like corruption. I will not tolerate it. And I know where the skeletons are, and hell, I know where the secret graveyards are. So they don't like that. And it's kind of sort of somebody comes in with an idea like Donald Trump did that's
Mhm.
turned things around and they don't like it. Plus, I deliver what I say I'm going to do. I said I'd bring justice and reform to the criminal justice system. Got elected 36 years ago to that, and I did 2 8-year terms. And if you wanted to see how I did things, you could have watched me 15 years on the show, where what you see is what you got, or we're getting anyway. So that, by the way, was real. It wasn't fake. It was binding contractual arbitration under U.S. and California law. So it was endorsed by both Supreme Courts, California's and the United States, but they were dealing with Judge Alex on the U.S. part, but
Okay.
it applied to what I was doing. So, it's like all of this going wrong. I live here
Mhm.
and there's something that needs to be done. I'm not too old to do stuff. I still jog a mile every other day or so.
Mhm.
But I have no further political ambition. I'm not doing this to get money like so many are. I'm going to get elected. Well, are you like some of these preachers that pimp the pulpit so they can get wealthy? Or are you trying to save souls or enhance the situation for the people that live here? And then the other thing you have on this other side, the Democratic contingent, they're all for, oh my God, we got to get this Memphis Safe Task Force out of here. Why? Crime dropped 43% since it's been in place. And for the entirety of last year, even including the periods when they weren't here, they've been so effective that the total homicide rate dropped 27% in Memphis, which is astonishing. And then we find on the Democratic side, and some of these RINOs, they're talking about we need to build a new jail. Why?
Mhm.
Remember, you guys said crime was dropping. So if crime was dropping compared to the way it was before, why do we need a new jail when what we had was quite adequate to the much higher crime rate, the way you put it? Or is it just a dodge for the usual in crowd to get a whole lot of money for building a jail we don't need to deal with? We've got that penal farm that could be much more easily expanded. It's got a lot of space out there, a lot of cell blocks are being used to store such things as toilet paper, for
Right.
goodness sakes. So, see, this thing with the bill of goods, we don't need this thing of turning the public parks for county and city, and the county can resist this over to this thing that certain individuals have come up with. What's the name of it? Green space. There's no
Mm-hmm.
reason to do that unless somebody's angling on getting concession fees from, let's see, converting the Liberty Bowl into a soccer arena with state and county money. Why do we need to do that and build a new football stadium? And we don't even have a football team. See, things don't make sense when you back off and look at them unless you figure out, oh, somebody's scheming. So there needs to be a counter pressure brought to bear. There are things where funds have been commingled that weren't supposed to. Funds are being misdirected from what we are supposed to be doing with them to try and get some other people an insight, let's say, on dealing with what Mason, Tennessee may become if this South Korean company called Blue Oval takes it over. And what is the county doing about the fact that we're going to have a factory in operation very shortly with 30,000 people there, and already 15,000 have been hired from South Korea. And on their company website, they say they were counting on the Biden Harris administration to be continued under Harris Imhoff, Mrs. Imhoff, so that they could get these foreigners in legally, but expeditiously, so they can hire more South Koreans rather than local residents. These kind of things don't need to be in play. The Sheridan Hotel down there, the county has a stake in that. And why are we anteing up almost $500 million for that decrepit place and then renting it back to
Mm-hmm.
somebody for a small percentage of the net, which is going to be zeroed out so there's nothing anyway when the accountants get through with it. See, those kind of things need to be addressed. Somebody needs to say, hey, the people need to be represented. We need those things that make us safe. We need those things that bring in jobs. The people that are running on the Democratic side, the current administration, Paul Young, that's in, the termed out one, Lee Harris, they don't know anything about finance, developing industry, urban development, and management. They have no idea about what to do with the crime problem, which is, I said several years ago, that's our number one problem. But some people wanted to poo poo me when I said it. Oh, they had all of these special DEI agendas that they thought were more important, but
Mm-hmm.
we wound up being the murder capital of the United States of America, the most violent city in the United States, and deplorably the 10th most violent in the whole world. And that is just inexcusable with what we have here. So many assets, and nobody wants to deal with it because they're more interested in what's going down under that table where their hand is under there waiting for a handout.
At the local Waffle House, Joe. Like those Tennessee Waltz 2.0.
We're going to need to have a Shelby County boogie. Mm.
But Judge, you are too modest though, because I remember when you was going through your cancer thing, that's throat cancer, I believe, that affects your communication. But you was like a marathon runner when it comes to talking. That you kept on talking, you pushed through it, and really it shows a lot about your resilience. Even when they try to take away your ability to communicate social media wise, congratulations, you getting your X platform back. I'm glad that you got it back. It's like y'all trying to stop you from talking, Judge. Like they got this
They've
thing.
done it. And
Mhm.
when you and I are on or other places, strangely, when it gets real good, blip, something happens, and that little yellow band, whoops, lost connectivity comes at the top. Yeah, great. But, you know,
I saw Paul Young bragging today about the low crime rate. I saw him.
he
I was
has
at
nothing to do
Chambers
with it.
today.
He has
Mhm.
nothing to do with it. And frankly, he's too scared of the constituents to go out and walk around and take a look at it. He's got to go out with 4 or 5 bodyguards. So you need somebody like me running the county because I didn't get the city. It was nonpartisan, and that crap they did was a mess. But he can't go out and just stop. Hey, come here, young man. What's up? What are you doing?
Right.
You can't do that. And see, well, you know what they did when I ran. They wouldn't take my advertising money,
Hmm.
and they ran Councilman slash Clerk Joe Brown's picture for 5 weeks before the election on the commercial appeal, 3, 5, 13, and 24. And they know there was no mistake. They did that on purpose because hell, 13 carried my show for 15 years. So I
Right.
mean, you, did he look like me?
Nah,
No.
y'all don't look like me. I like Judge Joe. I mean, Judge. Definitely like you, Judge. But I'm cool with Joe Brown too. He's like a decent guy,
Now
a
I don't
neighborhood
have a
guy.
problem with him.
Yeah.
I consider him a friend, but he's been sick. He wasn't me.
Mhm.
Now,
Right.
my sickness was crazy. Like you said, I kept talking. I just told
Mhm.
them, hey man, hit me hard. So they fried me with this radiation every day of the week for 9 weeks. I had third-degree burns inside my throat and on the outside of my neck. Man, that built character. But I said, do it. Don't hold
You
anything back.
you like Teddy
But
Roosevelt. You like a strenuous life. You like Teddy Roosevelt. You a rough rider, man. I
yeah,
don't know how you do it.
and these folk they are too much into the country club set.
Hmm.
They're too much into going around with a glass of Chablis in one hand and some delicate wafers on a tray, and they can't get out and get with the people. They go to these meetings where they try to stay out of the way and act agreeable when people start running the hustle down that they're going to get a part of. And
Hmm.
you know what? Years ago, I was campaigning for somebody. I think it was Judge Otis Higgs who was running for mayor at the time. He'd been a judge, resigned to run for mayor, and then came back later. And I was talking to an old guy, and he said, Lloyd Brown, he said, corruption ain't nothing new. They've been
Hmm.
having corruption here and everywhere else for a long time, but at least the ordinary guy got something out of it. He said, I used to get a shiny new corn, slice of juicy watermelon, and a shot of good whiskey. I don't get a damn thing now except get used. He said, these crooks get in and they don't even give anything back to the people that put them in. He
Right.
says, like a preacher get up on the pulpit and he be preaching everything but what's in that book.
Mm.
So that's one of the problems here. And they don't like it. But let's just say it's their right under the First Amendment, but the most important thing on my agenda is not those, let's be polite, those special pronoun people. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right.
And I look at the preachers that tolerate it while they have a bunch of them jittering around in front of their pulpit. I just say, what is it? The old one, Leviticus 2013. Doesn't it have something to say about that? Yeah,
Mm.
what are you doing if you're not preaching that book? So, since there was such a sanction on it in that book, are you trying to tell your congregation, oh, all you got to do is believe, but you don't have to follow or do? Oh, that doesn't work right. See,
I mean,
that's
but
too much.
a lot of
Yeah.
churches are facing a decline, especially in the black community. A lot of folks ain't going to church like they used to. So I guess you got to do what they got to do to attract a clientele, right? To get money.
Well, I told some preacher, I said, look, I'm not coming to your church. Last time I went was a long time ago, and you haven't been preaching about sin since. All you're talking about is belief. Well, Judge Brown, if we start talking about sin, nobody come. And what's that supposed to mean? So exactly what are you doing if you're not telling your congregation to behave right?
Hmm.
So, that's across the board. It's like it all becomes relativistic. Bravery, courage go out of the window. There's no standard of conduct, no ethics, no morality. You want our young girls and daughters and granddaughters and nieces to look like sluts and dance around acting a fool. You don't want the kids to be in school and pay attention to it. You tell them that they can't do anything because some racist something will do something to them. But last I checked, there's no racist sitting on the other side of the kitchen table where they could be doing their homework. Have you seen one?
No.
You know, or have you seen many of them sitting at the kitchen table or anywhere else in the house doing homework? Or some of the people that go out and whine talking about I'm entitled. Well, look, um, exactly what are you doing? I tried to hire you and yours, and you didn't show up to do the job, didn't have finish it, and I had to bring somebody else in. Was that white supremacist that kept you from doing what I was paying you to do?
Hmm.
You know, and I've found some good contractors, good hardworking people.
Right.
But then I look at everybody in this county is serviced by Memphis Light Gas and Water, but why did they sell off all of their equipment to keep the trees trimmed so they wouldn't bring down the power lines? And why are they coming up with $26,000 per square mile when it doesn't even break 5 or 6,000 a mile in the rest of the state? How did it come about? What's going on here? We have inclement weather. We know it's coming up. Modern weather forecasting is getting pretty
Right.
good. And
Hmm.
we know about it for weeks, but there's no sand, no salt to put out, and it doesn't make any difference if it rains. That film of salt will stop the ice for months, but they don't put it out. They don't even have the trucks because they sold them off and they put the money in their pockets. And now, instead of repairing the infrastructure, they're trying to put in a pipeline on this water shunt, sewage shunt, so we can pay for the cost of sewage, you know, uh, processing and supply water to what is Mason, 5,200 people. That's okay, but it'll soon be 250,000 inside of 10 years. Do we have to pay that bill? We don't get anything out of it. We don't get any of the county share of a property tax on something outside of the county. I mean, why are we paying for these things instead of them being appropriately assigned a priority? And there is a bid system out there. Why don't we do these things with medical insurance? Why don't we do something about taking our deposits out of First Horizon? Used to be First Tennessee, but now it's not even a U.S. bank. It's out of Canada. So why are
Mm.
we giving all this money to Canada
Hmm.
when we could be putting it in alternative banks that could be extending lines of credit, business loans for small businessmen or women who are enterprising, for first-time homeowners, and for another series of things I can think of off the top of my head. But these people don't think about that. They think a little petty stuff and rushing out when they get a little invite in the country club to explain themselves or get told what their instructions are. And
Hmm.
I think some of those who are on board with that like it. Now, we've got a congressman, been in 20 years. So he ought to be getting seniority, right?
Hmm.
Have seniority. We ought to get a lot of stuff in Memphis. Do we?
It don't come directly to the people. It goes
Well,
somewhere.
well, well, let's talk about he's a lawyer. He's supposed to be the type of person after 20 years in Congress. He's a senior in various committees. This is the
Hmm.
type of person that sponsors legislation. So
Right.
what has he delivered to us? His
Uh,
only legislation?
what?
A binding resolution on the cafeteria there that says they have to use paper straws.
You know
Can
what,
you believe
Judge?
that?
Well, it's Memphis is Memphis. That's Memphis. But like my problem is like with the latest like the ice inclement weather thing. Somebody could have stepped in and been a leader because you got FedEx here, you got Elon Musk here, you got the National Guard here. Somebody could have had enough sense to do something like ambitious to clear the roadways of a major economic hub such as Memphis, a major transportation hub, and really Mother Nature bailed us out. But still, though, it's like isn't Paul Young an engineer background? Do you understand how to do certain things, how to make infrastructure work?
Well, just because you got a degree doesn't mean you know what the devil you're doing.
Yes, this is true.
There are a lot of law people with law licenses and law degrees don't know what the hell they're doing. There's some judges that don't either. And there's some good ones too. There's some good engineers. I don't know. But you would expect that if he knew how to manipulate and deal with the managing a government, we'd have better law enforcement since he nominally is head of all law enforcement in the city. You would expect that if he's a good city manager, he's organized the departments so they are coherent, cohesive, and efficient in delivering services. Wouldn't you think that?
I
Why
would think
would
so.
these potholes remain unfixed?
I mean, one thing about Boss Crump, he would have had all this settled, from my understanding. You need a strong man like Mayor Daley, Gangster Daley, the Mayor Daley Senior up in Chicago. They keep the streets running, the trains running on time. I don't think nobody. It had to be Paul Young. It's like when they had the hurricane thing and it hit North Carolina. Did not Elon Musk provide them with internet access via Starlink? We got Elon Musk in town. Could he help us out with this situation?
Yeah,
They kept
but
the power on though
they're
before his
trying to run
supercomputer.
him out of town. Justin Pearson is accusing him of violating environmental protection concerns. There's never been a test run. There's never been a finding that anything he's up to with XAI is inappropriate or anti environmental. That's just some propaganda because they don't like his politics. And
Okay.
he's supposed to be polluting the people over through President's Island. How long has that refinery been over there? That its compliance with EPA is very suspect. And quite frankly, looking at what's going on in that area right around and about over there, they need some jobs. It looks
Mhm.
like, did you see that movie, Sinners,
Yeah.
the vampire thing, when it was down in Mississippi in the 1930s?
Mm-hmm.
That looks just like out of that movie.
it,
I mean, come
it looks
on.
interesting. Yeah, S 381. I mean 38109 area code, right?
Yeah. So we need
Oh,
some
zip code.
jobs
Excuse
in
me.
industry. See,
Mm-hmm.
XAI brings to Memphis the potential to make this the center of a new .com revolution, to make it a Silicon Valley. And here we are on the verge of vast expansion in wealth, circumstance, public safety, access to benefits, homes, educational uplifting for our children and grandchildren. And we're trying to throw it out. Look
Mm-hmm.
at this. The Memphis Safe Task Force has made a profound impact into crime around here. And our leadership is trying to throw it out because they say the boogeyman's trying to take over. Come on. They didn't even sue him. They sued the governor, the
Mm-hmm.
commander of the National Guard unit, and the state attorney general. And what are they trying to offer in place of it? What? They can't even go out and talk to the young gangsters. They're scared.
Paul Young said he had a meeting with some of the top gang leaders of the city
Yeah,
about
but it
over a
was
year
in a
ago.
room with about 30 SWAT members standing around with carbines and riot guns. What kind of meeting is that supposed to be? You're supposed to go out in the hood and meet with them, not bring them into a room where you got an army standing around.
Yeah, I wouldn't even went to that meeting. I wouldn't trust it. It's like it was a setup. It sounded like what it was. But Paul, I mean, you know what it is. Like Paul is in a pocket. And I don't have no animosity towards Paul Young. I actually like him personally. Like I had a good conversation with him. It's not like he got a love for Memphis, but is he the right leadership for this time in
Well, let's
Memphis
put it
history?
this way. What I know they're up to, if I were doing what I was doing, they should have been in front of me, ready for sentencing.
Mm,
That thing with the Sheridan Hotel is a ripoff. That
okay.
thing with that former Greyhound bus depot development, that's a ripoff. That thing with those statues and those parks, that's a ripoff. That
Okay.
thing down there about converting the Liberty Bowl to a soccer arena, that's a ripoff. That thing about the streets, that's a ripoff. There are all kinds of things. That thing with the Sheridan to almost a $500 million tune, that is a ripoff. This thing with the Tyree Nichols case, there's a big problem with that. Guess what it is I'm not in charge, but under Tennessee statutes, if you put your child up for adoption, you give up all parental rights. So it seems that the late Mr. Tyree Nichols was put up for adoption long time ago. So why do we have an adopted parent as a plaintiff in a $550 million lawsuit that Mayor Strickland and Chief Davis tried to concede was a city liability? Why has no one filed a motion to dismiss? And under the circumstances, it's not even a matter of protecting the citizens from random police action, but something else seems to have been going on. So why do we have no filing of a motion to dismiss when everybody that I've talked to say, you're right, that is the statute?
Hmm.
Why haven't we done anything about it? I don't know. You mean to tell me that the city mayor does not have a sufficient connection with anybody that understands what the law is and can do something about defending the city rather than just conceding it? So why are they trying to concede $550 million? That hand under the table?
It sounds like Memphis weird with that. They'll sell stuff off and then buy it back at a higher price. Like
No, they don't buy it back. What they do is they sell it off, pocket the money,
mm-hmm.
distribute it in dribs and drabs elsewhere. And what they do is they say they will hire private contractors and then pay them 10 times what it's worth. And there's also a little under the table action, allegedly, that comes out of that. See, it's a scam. The Board of Education, for example, the Memphis and Shelby County Board of Education. See, it does not review contracts of $100,000 or less, but one entity may have 13, 14, 15 contracts a year for a little less than $100,000, and that adds up to the millions. So why do you need that? Why do you need all of this huge payout to subcontract the legal work for the Board of Education when you've got a board attorney's office? Why don't they handle it? I've been in some of those meetings before I stopped practicing, helping out some of the senior teachers. And I'm sitting in there, and somebody from the board with 15 years' experience is in there, and somebody in there with 4 years out of law school is getting paid $3,500 an hour. That's happening over and over and over. Why? And then what was this? That Fagan's got somebody's finger pointed in her face? $13 million for tutoring that nobody has seen. And by the way, she seems like a fine woman. It's just that if you can't handle the rinky-dinky Board of Education, how are you going to handle this county?
Well, Joe, let me ask you this: Are you gonna run as an independent now, or
No, I can't.
You can't?
No. See what happens. That's what's so bad about it.
That's crazy.
If you would have to do this, circulate and file two petitions, one with a party and one as an independent, in case they rejected your party thing. But that would be very bad for the party that you're trying to be part of. So what happens is you had until high noon, February 19th, to file the qualifying petition. So you file as a Republican, file as a Democrat, and they tried to do that to Fagan too, by the way. And what winds up happening is the muckety mucks sitting behind closed doors, used to be smoke filled rooms. Now they're having a secret Zoom conference, and they decide they don't want you because they don't think you are a real Republican or a real Democrat, and they knock you out. Now you can't run as anything because you aren't qualified as an independent to be on the ballot. So you're just knocked off.
Well, okay, can we write you in though? I mean,
You can write it. Yeah, you can write me in. But the appellate period is Thursday. So let's see what happens. I think some people are going to feel the heat. And I think there is reform that is needed because the Democratic Party is not it. Frankly, it's their right to do whatever they want to do in terms of advocacy, but my main priority is not how much hair can some dude have on his face and still pee in the girl's bathroom. You know,
Well, Judge, I think what the problem is really, I think it's weird because you've been one of the best delegates for Trump unofficially. You helped sway the public opinion nationally in his favor back in 2024. To me, I think you'd be the most effective Republican candidate for Shelby County if we were going to turn that corner. Because I think the problem is with you, Judge. First of all, it's not your problem. They can't control you. You know too much. You know where the bodies are buried. You're not a puppet. You're your own man, and you got a track record of serving the people, to actually being a public servant, which a lot of these people are not used to being. That's a problem. You got name recognition, you got a brand, you got a legacy. A lot of these kids taking all this money from people because they don't got that recognition. They don't got the connection to the streets and to the community and to the neighborhood. And you a person that people respect, and you have an integrity that you stand on, and it's well earned and deserved. So
well,
you the dream candidate to me. You know
yeah,
what
and
I'm
by the
saying?
way, I was not a bad criminal defense lawyer because I could, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I could talk to them. And every now and then I can give a halfway decent speech. And
That's
I
right.
was either the one or two highest rated syndicated show in the United
That's
States for
right.
a long time. There is that appeal. So, and the ladies think I'm okay, looking, So, uh, I bring that to the table. And as a matter of fact, my declared major at UCLA a long time ago was political science with a specialty in, amongst other things, urban management and development,
Yes,
which is
sir.
just exactly what we need right now. And UCLA was not a second rate law school then, nor is
Mm-hmm.
it now.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't do too badly, and they tried to recruit me to UCLA Law School, where I went, and a lot of other law schools for that matter. And I didn't get in under any affirmative action program because they were just starting them up back then.
Mm.
So, matter of fact, I helped start one of the first in the country, but it didn't read like this quota driven pathetic thing they've got now where everybody's talking about how bad they suffer. It was simply based on the concept that, well, to explain it very crudely, what do you want? Your airhead daughter is 17, or she might be 21, 23, and she doesn't look at the gas gauge, and it's 4:17 a.m. a.m. in the morning, and she says, "Oh my God, I'm on E. I got to get gas." When she pulls off the freeway to get gas, do you want her to pull off in an area populated by thug management,
Mm.
pimps, drug dealers, and
Mm-hmm.
all the rest? Or would you like the leadership in that community to be responsible, above board, and capable? See, so the idea was it's in everybody's interest when residents drive cars and they get around so that everybody gets a shot at developing effective leadership. And it's that what counts, not just because there's supposed to be a quota to the
Mm-hmm.
underprivileged. See,
Right.
we said that would be reverse discrimination. And what we came up with read almost exactly like Robert's opinion. What is going on 3 years ago now about it? And I said, wow, he looks like he read what we came up with in 1967.
Hmm.
So, you know, it is what it is. There are ways of doing stuff. And if you're not smart enough to figure out how to do it, get the hell out the way and let somebody get in who is.
But my thing is about I don't know what that Gavin Newsom thing was all about, but I saw little snippets of it. I think it's very disrespectful that he disrespects the intelligence of black people because a lot of inventions we invented. They developed the patent office to keep us from claiming our rightful intellectual property. I mean, Roger Taney basically told Dred Scott and his descendants, y'all have no rights that we are bound to respect by law. But we invented everything. We invented, like, just Dr. Gladys West invented GPS. I mean, black folks, how are you going to erase us and we play a big part in this country's development?
It's Article 1 of the Constitution. It says to encourage intellectual and industrial development, etc. Uh, there shall be a protection extended to intellectual property. So, Article 1 of the Constitution sets up what became the Patent Office, and it sets up a framework that leaves it to Congress for the particular details on encouraging that. Patents are interesting. You've heard of the
Mm.
Winchester rifle?
Yes, sir. Of course.
If you read one that was made back, whether it was Henry, who was the plant foreman for Winchester, they called it the Henry. The Union
Mm.
Army used a lot of them in 1860. Or
Mm-hmm.
you looked at a Winchester 1866, 1873, it said patents pending, and everybody thought there was a patent. Do you
Mm.
know there's not one single thing on those rifles that was patented? Everybody just got bluffed, and the only thing that it was
Wow.
patentable on a Winchester rifle was the side loading gate where you put the bullets in. That was the only thing that was patented. And the Henry didn't even have that. It had you had to pull the core of the magazine out from the muzzle to load it. So, I
Mm.
mean, it's like patents are interesting intellectual property, and even to use them, you have to be smart. So, you
Mm.
see, we don't teach our children, and our culture doesn't push being smart. It pushes being cunning like a fox, but a fox is not as intelligent as you are.
Mm.
So, we push that and how to run a hustle, but we don't teach our kids or ourselves to look at the big picture. Now, yeah, we invented a lot of stuff, but we didn't do anything with it.
Mm.
See, W.B. Du Bois, who's now perceived as a villain, but was a hero back in my day,
Mm-hmm.
and to my parents as well, said the problem with the 20th century will be the color line. The
Right.
solution to the color line, he posited, would be the talented 10th. In other words, those smart people that represented a 10th of the colored population who, if educated, would be able to reach down and bootstrap the people up, but it got corrupted. Now nobody tries to give a damn about anybody except lip service so they can get put in and get wealthy.
Mm.
It's like you're looking at it. It's like, really? And did you hear the whistle blown about the $10 million that got funded from the Biden Harris Imhoff Justice Department to Fannie so she could prosecute Trump? Lawfare in coordination with Smith and Tish James up in New York. And by the way I read the law, that's conspiratorial, and we have 3 more years approximately. There might be some indictments returned. It might be getting very interesting.
Well, I would say
And
this, like, yeah, go ahead. Yes, sir.
yeah, but I mean, you look at that, like, Dana and I have been keeping up with what's going on down there in Atlanta with that Fannie Willis situation.
It's a
And it
mess.
looks like
Hot
all of
mess.
that deal with Mr. Wade allegedly was so that since nobody was looking over her shoulder at the time to say yay or nay on what she authorized him being paid, that was a nice way to get him an enormous amount of cash flowing into his accounts, and he could funnel a little of it under the table,
Mm.
maybe. But
Mm.
we've got now $10 million that seems to have turned up missing that some people in the old White House gave to her. And there's $10 million of state funds that they would like some explanation relative to its whereabouts and usage. That's
Mm.
7.5 million for catching up on felony prosecutions, 500,000 for juvenile prosecutions, and 2 million for sex crimes that seems to have disappeared. And that's what those subpoenas are about. Where'd the money go?
Mm.
So, it's like all kind. They're picking on me because I'm a sister girl, but you know, is that the case? And that lame story they tell about uh somebody's trying to impose fascism on the country.
Hmm.
I think they tried to steal that from something I said on X. But frankly, that isn't what the case is. Fascism is socialist.
Hmm.
And fascism was perfected by the National Socialist Workers' Party. We have one here known as the Democratic Party, but the initials for the German acronym for National Socialist Workers' Party, NAZI, and history knows that one well. So one of their tactics is blame your opponent of doing what you're doing.
Right. But you know what's interesting? Franklin Roosevelt and his ilk, they were great admirers of Hitler and Mussolini back in the 30s. They really had a lot of respect for Mussolini and Hitler, from my understanding. And then also, like you said, we got to get back to the basis. You know, the first African American or Black American native to get a patent was Thomas Jennings, who invented dry cleaning. And then his daughter was Elizabeth Jennings, who took on segregation in streetcars in New York City. And she was represented by Chester A. Arthur, a future U.S. president. But he used his money to free his people and to empower his people. Thomas Jennings. And so you got black folks that got money and resources. They don't do any type of empowerment or community building.
And when they have the position, they don't do a damn thing either.
Well, let me ask you this, because you are, I mean, like
By,
you are
by the
Mason.
way,
Yeah.
by the way,
Mm-hmm.
well, we'll come back to that. It's on Black History. I was going to make
Yeah,
a
well, I
remark
would ask you,
about
Judge, like you well connected. Can you have power in places like Memphis without being connected to a frat or sorority or being a Mason? Is it
yeah,
possible anybody
yeah.
give me an example who did that? I don't know any examples. It's like everybody's either in a
Well,
frat
let
or
me tell you
sorority
what it
or a
used to
Mason.
be. Let me tell you what
Okay.
it used to be. See, Masonry is about 5,000 some years old.
Okay.
Those monuments, temples, the pyramids, the Greek temples, and such like, Masons designed those things and they had them built. And
Mm-hmm.
when it started off, it was taking a peasant or a pharaoh
Mm-hmm.
or a king or a chief and teaching him how to make bricks, how to lay them,
Mm-hmm.
how to cut and dress stone, and then ultimately how to design a building and how to get it built.
Right.
It was uh, an adventure in learning or going through an apprenticeship to become an architectural engineer.
Mm.
Meanwhile, what happens is you teach people character to go along with this mighty authority and knowledge and information that they could otherwise be very dangerous with. That's masonry.
Mm-hmm.
100 years ago, the four frats, not five, the four,
Okay.
and the four sororities started up masquerading as Black or colored Greek social organizations, but their purpose was to fight segregation. They pledged very hard because, in the process of doing that, you might get caught by the sheriff, Bubba, down here in Mississippi, someplace, or Alabama, and tortured. And they wanted to see if you would snitch on everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Now, both of these entities, the sororities, fraternities, Daughters of the Eastern Star, and Masonry, they had protocols. They had very severe and brutal tests and rites of passage to become one,
Right.
and they were loyal to each other, and they had an independent communications net. So when you wanted to communicate long distance or short distances, there was a reliable methodology. There was a brotherhood or sisterhood that you could trust, and you did not have to worry about snitches or somebody betraying what you were trying to do. Now, late mid 60s, all across the country, some weak people started complaining about being brutalized by frats and sororities, and some of the little rejects that never got in jumped on the bandwagon to prosecute. And by the way, for
Mhm.
the white folk, the same thing was going in to set up a reliable organization that could be trusted to reliably communicate and keep confidences. And if you
Mhm.
dealt with somebody that was your frat, a mason like you, or a sorer like you could trust them. But what wound up happening is that kind of got knocked out of the wayside, and you started running downhill from a situation where everybody, from Martin Luther King to just about everybody that was involved in civil rights, trying to get stuff done and setting this country up, it's starting a revolution way back when to get away from the English crown, they all were Masons or they became members of a fraternity because that was an existing cell situation that could be used for revolutionary purposes, literally.
Okay. Mhm.
Now, what happened is one of the reasons that we had a fall off, besides the glorification of dysfunction inherent in black exploitation, which propagandized the negative for the last 55 years to gullible people. The frats and sororities fell out, and what happened is we had a lot of organizations ranging from the Black Panther Party to the Black Student Alliance to the uh, barrio based Brown Berets to SDS. And when these sororities and fraternities fell out, they started being subject to being infiltrated. And by
Mhm.
the time 1970 came around, the Panther Party was dead. The Black Students Alliance was in disarray. A lot of things were going wrong because there were more people in the organization who were snitches than there were people who were legitimately trying to help it. And
Right.
that's one of the problems we have right now. We have no organizational basis. And to an extent, that collaborated with the Black church or the Catholic church with the Hispanics. And now we
Mhm.
don't have that because we've got a collection of pulpit pimps. Not everybody, but too many that have no understanding of these things. And they get paid off by folk to deliver a vote in block, and they don't have any interest in the welfare of the people.
Mm.
So it's fallen apart, and I hear all these calls for unity, and I just shake my head. I just said, if you knew all of the people that I knew personally who are now dead or died at an early age, let's put it candidly, were murdered at an early age,
Mhm.
you might understand that you need to back off that unity and just deal with the people who have proven that they can be trusted.
Mm.
Because if you start trying to embrace everybody and unity being your be all end all call without an understanding that that has to be tested, you'll destroy yourself or get destroyed because there are too many wicked people out there right now that just look at this as either a money making proposition or an opportunity to escape criminal justice breathing down their throat for criminal behavior.
Well, Judge, I'm glad I had to bring this up. Jesse Jackson was Omega. I think he was a Shriner or something like that, and
He's
he
an
just
Omega.
passed on. Huh, sir?
Yeah. And by the way, I know this from being the last judge on that James Earl Ray case. We
Okay.
had a lot of memoranda in there from the FBI that touched on Jesse Jackson and how they had to destroy him. So
Okay.
we saw the buildup over the years of an intense program to discredit him. So now people look at him as a traitor. He wasn't. There was another somebody, and our late friend Dick Gregory exposed him. Remember the interview that he had and
Yes.
whom that was with? It wasn't Jesse Jackson that was the traitor, it was that person because that person was getting blackmailed because of certain, we won't mention it,
Well, I heard
but
he was a police informant too. That came out in the '99 civil trial that he was a
yeah.
police informant.
So Jesse Jackson, I'll give you this. I sat next
Mhm.
to him for 4 hours at a time on two plane flights from LA to somewhere. And we talked about it, and he was earnest when I started briefing him on what I had discovered. He said, "We got to get to the bottom of this at all cost." Now, the individual that the late Dick Gregory recorded exposing himself, not that way, but exposing what he was up to, said, "We need to let sleeping dogs lie." There are another couple of people prominent in the civil rights movement just let sleeping dogs lie, and they were suspect in terms of their involvement in betraying the movement because of certain things they like to do. Now, Reverend Lowry was not one of them. He also was one of the ones that said, "We need to get to the bottom of this. This needs to be investigated and developed. Anything I can do to help, let me know." All right. Down here in Atlanta, what's the brother that was the ambassador and he would
Andy
been
Young, Andrew
Andrew
Young.
Young? He
Yeah.
said we need to get to the bottom of it. I gave him a long briefing one afternoon out there at Cozy Corner Barbecue,
Hmm.
and we talked about it. And yeah, there's some righteous people, but you see, I'm looking at all these internal FBI memoranda where they're discussing discrediting people by dropping rumors and other stuff. And if you want to see how that works, there are two books. There's Glass House Tapes, and there's Glass House Tapes 2, written by Lewis Tackwood, who I got shocked when I went to a homicide trial and saw him introduced as Lieutenant Lewis Tackwood of the Los Angeles Police Department's Special Investigative Services Unit. And I go, whoa, that's deep. We thought he was somebody who was a medic who had done some service in Vietnam and came back and he helped out people who received injuries, which did occur with some frequency because it was dangerous being involved with what was going on in the 60s.
Right.
Whether you were white, black, brown, red, yellow, there were things that happened that most of these clowns today running around trying to sell wolf tickets about how dedicated they are to running this crazy agenda that they do that has nothing to do with duty, honor, obligation, responsibility, and accountability.
Hmm.
I tell you something else how you can tell a brave person. Warriors admit when their opponents are brave and courageous. Hell, if you beat a coward, you didn't do anything, you just whipped some behind. You didn't show
Right.
how good a warrior you were. So after the fight was over, win, lose, or draw, your opponent was brave. We admire the Japanese samurai now, don't we? Everybody takes martial arts, karate, and people love sushi. And we go to Benihana's and we have Toyotas, Mitsubishis, Hondas, and Lexus vehicles and Infinities parked in our driveways. We had a set two with Germany. There was the Battle of the Bulge, World War One and World War Two, but they've got Mercedes Benzes, BMWs, Audis, Volkswagens, Porsches, you name it.
Hmm.
We drive them. We respect bravery and courage. He was on the other side, the wrong side, the losing side in the American Civil War, but you got to admire Pickett's charge up the hill at Gettysburg, where he started off with 10,000, came back with 4,000, and the rest of them laid out on the field. You got to admire that courage and bravery, even if it was against you.
Right.
But we don't do that now, and we tend to put down people who are brave and courageous, and what we call brave or heroic has to do with how many points you score in a basketball game, which is what a lot of people of us do to waste our time on when we ought to be concentrating on other stuff. And some people get paid millions of dollars for playing. So we also have this thing of we're victims. Everybody's been dumping on us, man. Everybody dumps on you. What kind of punk ass fool are you? Stand up for yourself.
That's
We're
right.
victims of white supremacy. Well, why do you let yourself be a victim of white supremacy? There's nothing you can do about it. Yes, it is. Why don't you find out, fool, instead of whining about it and complaining about what somebody won't let you do? Say, man, hell with you. I'm going to do what I need to do as long as it's not breaking the law. Go for it.
Right.
I mean, you have a black mayor down here in the city. You got a black mayor termed out for the county. You've got a majority black city council, a majority black county commission, a super majority black board of education, a
Mm-hmm.
black female chief of police, a black sheriff. You have 60% of the criminal court judges are black and female. You have 75% of the jury pool is black. Most of the officers are black on the police department. Most of the deputies are black on the sheriff's department. What the hell do you need? Where are you getting victimized by white supremacy, you fool? You just psyched your dumb ass out. Excuse my language.
No, no, that's a great point you made, Judge. That's Memphis for you. But with Jesse, man, I got respect for him because he understood how to play the game. I mean, King was 26. He was 26 when King was taken out of here, and he was 27 when they took Fred Hampton out of here. But I'm saying he played the Chicago way, though. He did it Chicago style,
Yeah.
where you can
See,
be
Fred
corrupt and
Hampton,
grimy but get stuff done.
I met Fred Hampton, but he was a
Mhm.
teenager when I met him. He wanted to be part of what was going on, but the Panther Party had pretty much been destroyed by snitches and
Mhm.
also some internal problems that it had,
Mhm.
contradictions. And he got in kind of late, and he was a young man, and they scammed him, set him up, and he got killed.
Right.
Because, as I said, this was dangerous, really being effective. And he wasn't the
Mhm.
only one by any stretch of the imagination. Hell, I was present when John Huggins and Bunchy Carter got assassinated by the US organization at Campbell Hall at UCLA in the 60s.
Right.
You know, Nat Clark got done in. I knew him. I recruited him. Hell, I used to date his sister at one time.
Right.
Um, all of these folk, I knew Elaine Brown when she was a secretary out there before we recruited her to school. Geronimo Pratt had been in the U.S. Army. He did 4 tours in the Nam. He was a Green Beret sergeant. And that was a scary dude, you know, but
Mhm.
we used to talk. You know, all of these things going on, but it got destroyed for the most part by black on black activity.
Mhm.
Now, all of that said, there is no easy way to get what we seem to want. It's going to require hard work, dedication, and sacrifice, and some common sense. Sloganism is not going to get it.
Mhm.
It requires hard work, being up late at night, studying it, and not from some bozo who decides he's going to adapt. It's okay if you do, but just because you adopt some African name doesn't mean you have any wisdom.
Mhm.
You might find that if you study people from all over the world, whether they're Chinese, African, Greek, Roman, Italian, whether they are German, French, or English, you might pick up some very interesting techniques and tactics about how to make and effectuate good change.
Mhm.
You have allies out there, and I know they're, I ain't have no, man, shut up. You ain't doing nothing. So get over it. Take a look at a picture, a wartime picture where there's Roosevelt sitting in the middle, and on his left side is Joe Stalin, and on his right side is Winston Churchill. One represents a monarchy, one represents a democratic republic, and one represents communism. And they
Mhm.
all wound up being at each other's throats for the next 45, 50 years. But they were allies to get Tojo, Benito, and Adolf. And they
Right.
did.
Mhm.
So understand how this thing works, study it, and get out your feelings. Doesn't anybody give a damn anyway? Be effective. And remember this, all's fair in love and war. And as General Clausewitz said in his book on war, it's called in German Vom Krieg, he
Mm-hmm.
said, war is but the ultimate extension of the political process. War is politics in its ultimate form, so it is a continuation from one shade of gray to another shade of gray. So keep that in mind and treat your politics like it's war and treat your war like it's politics.
Mm. Okay, I'm glad you brought us to this point. I gotta get your take on the U.S. Israeli bombing of Iran and the killing of the supreme leader. That's
Okay.
crazy.
Well, here's what's going on. The U.S. has a coalition. It's kind of undercover. It put together a weak detente
Mm-hmm.
between Israel, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia. All
Okay.
of these people have a problem with Iran. Iran used to be run by the Shah, who incidentally called for the formation of OPEC under the guidance and tutelage of the U.S. Secretary of State, Henry Kissinger.
Mm.
Okay, now the Shah of Iran was progressive. He was trying to make Iranian life more closely akin to that in the West. He was ejected and he fled to France,
Okay.
and the Ayatollahs took over. Now, all over the world, and I'm sure this isn't AI, you are seeing footage where Iranian women are tearing off the burqas and the Iranians are celebrating in the streets because they got this theological dictatorship removed from their shoulders. They're
Mm-hmm.
happy about it. That's what the United States does, is deal with spreading democratic republicanism around the world. All right?
Okay.
We owe Iran something. Remember, in 1980, they captured the American embassy and held our personnel hostage for several months.
Mm-hmm.
We find that Iran is sponsoring a lot of so called terrorist activity, Hamas, ISIS, Al Qaeda.
Right.
Now, Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution says without declaration of war, it is the responsibility of the president
Oh, wait a minute.
in chief and the military and naval forces to pursue, eradicate, and suppress piracy wherever found in the world. And secondarily, the exact quote is to, quote, enforce the law of nations, unquote. Article 6 of the Constitution says ratified treaties will be part of the supreme law of the land. Now, it also says both federal and state judges shall enforce all treaties. Some of the treaties we have declare things like hijacking airlines to be part of piracy, and it's the obligation to pursue, eradicate, and suppress piracy. You don't need a declaration of war. Iran financing hijacking aircraft by Al Qaeda, remember 9/11?
Mm-hmm.
And ISIS and spinoff and terroristic activity, etc., that becomes part of the law of nations that we have agreed to be part of enforcing. So, without treaty or anything else, but we do have treaties that makes it part of our supreme law. We have an obligation without a declaration of war to enforce the law of nations. And the
Okay.
president in Article 1, Section 8 is specifically charged with that. And as commander in chief, he does not have to sit still and allow the United States to be attacked. There is another consideration nobody's talking about. This dumbass Biden Harris Imhoff administration opened the borders, and I hold her specifically responsible because she was made the border czar.
Right.
And we
Mm-hmm.
allowed Al Qaeda, ISIS, Hamas, and their affiliates, Iran directly, North Korea, the ability to walk across in the millions with backpacks containing military grade explosives and sophisticated detonation devices. They've already planted them. So when you take out the Iranian leadership, the Ayatollah, for example, what you do is you take out the command authority, so it disrupts their ability to say, set them off, light them up, let the fireworks begin. And you also send a message, see what happens, we can easily reach you. Now, if you set these things off or give the orders, we'll take you out.
Mm.
So there is an interesting thing in maintaining this cooperation of keeping things down and keeping the playing field even, because the United States, now Russia, formerly the Soviet Union, and the People's Republic of China are playing a three-way chess game there through surrogates.
Hmm.
We have a situation where probably about 85% of the Israeli Air Force consists of pilots who are U.S. combat pilots on furlough from the Air Force, Navy, and Marine Corps to serve over there. Trump could intimidate the hell out of Israel by simply revoking the furloughs and demanding that these active duty officers return to active duty.
Mm-hmm.
And Israel knows that. But Israel, see, has an interesting thing the United States does not possess. It is true that the CIA does assassinate people, they kill folk,
All right.
but it's against the law. And they can't do it in America. But Israel, under its constitution, has authorized what is the Mossad to effectuate politically based killings legitimately under their law.
Mm.
So they become very handy. See, the counterintelligence bureaus of Saudi Arabia cooperate closely with the Israeli Mossad, and they all cooperate very closely with Egypt. Back in 1976 through 78, Jimmy Carter engineered a very interesting treaty between Egypt and Israel, signed off on by Menachem Begin, I believe, at the time, that was the Israeli prime minister, and Anwar Sadat, the
Mm-hmm.
Egyptian president. We get bases in Egypt and we supply the Egyptian military with its equipment, M1 tanks, F 16s, you name it. We
Mm-hmm.
supply combat pilots, tanks, and other equipment, though they now have the Merkva, so they don't use too many M60s and they don't particularly want the M1. And we buy from them weapons such as a standoff defense system for our tanks, armor. We get a chance to see what happens when it's in combat, and we were able to switch over the hydraulic fluid from what tankers called cherry juice with the
Mm-hmm.
M60 when we found that under pressure, if it got ruptured, the lines and sprayed into a turret in a tank
Mm-hmm.
after it got hit, it would blow up with a catastrophic explosion. So we got rid of that. We learned a lot in terms of tactics in fighting a ground war instead of just getting ensnared in how to deal with third world asymmetric situations. So
Mm-hmm.
we get a lot out of them and they get a lot out of us, and we sort of keep order, and it's a delicate balance. And a lot of what goes on is frankly just political theater and drama that really has very little to do with what's going on behind the scenes. It looks like a set to between religions, but
Hmm.
the prime minister of Israel, Netanyahu, he's a
Mm-hmm.
self-avowed atheist. He doesn't believe in the
Hmm.
religion. It's a culture. You've
Mm-hmm.
got Iran that has had a long populist movement that at one time rejoiced at coming into the Western world, this out
Okay.
there. And they are in a position, and I'm sure have built at least one or two nukes. But guess what? What ended World War II?
The A bomb.
Nagasaki and
Yeah,
Hiroshima.
that's right.
Fat man, fat boy, fat man, and little boy. But
Mm-hmm.
you know how many bombs we had? We just had three. We had to blow one up in the desert to see if the plutonium bomb would work. It did. We knew the little boy would work because that was simple, but it took us 6 months to build another bomb.
Mm.
So we stopped World War II with two bombs. And that would be very bad to be the target for even a primitive bomb, which is a lot bigger in yield than 16 kilotons they dropped on Hiroshima.
Wow.
That's 16,000 tons of TNT explosive equipment. We've got that floating down the Mississippi River on barges.
Mm.
And the barges carry not 16,000 tons, but 24,000 tons of ammonium nitrate that pound for pound is 1.5 times more powerful than an equivalent rate of TNT.
Wow.
So they go right by where? How many cities in Mississippi do they pass on the way up to Memphis? And
Mm.
most of that traffic right now is in ammonium nitrate that consists of the explosive in the 155 howitzer shells that the Army and Marine Corps use. So you can imagine what's out there if somebody decided to use that river for what they could. And by the way, nobody's looking at it. It takes 30 days from New Orleans to get to Memphis. So it is what it is. Now,
Mm-hmm.
um, we've got all kinds of stuff going on with this thing with Iran. So it's not unprecedented. And are you familiar with the Marine Corps hymn?
The Marine. No, tell us, share.
From the halls of Montezuma
Okay,
to the
yeah,
shores of
yeah.
Tripoli.
The
The
Tripoli, yeah.
shores of Tripoli are right down there in the Mediterranean, and
Mm-hmm.
the Barbary pirates were doing just about what Hamas has been doing down there with their missiles in the Gulf. And we sent the U.S. Marine Corps and a new warship called the Constellation and a new warship called the Constitution, which still exists in Boston Harbor and it's still in commission.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why the Marines sing that. They were sent down there to deal with a similar situation in 1806. That's 220 years ago. So the precedent's been long set. Ain't nothing new.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, you've got a real live mess. Ever been to BP, the gas station, the green thing with the yellow
Yeah.
BP?
Yes, sir. Yes,
That's
sir.
British Petroleum. That started
Mm-hmm.
off from Anglo-Persian Oil Company that Winston Churchill had British Parliament buy a 51% interest in. The
Okay.
British Navy needed a reliable source of oil because them not thinking of science and engineering and math led them to miscalculate on their fleet, and they desperately needed to switch from coal to oil to get the extra tonnage for armor. So in 1922, the Royal Marines went down to Iraq
Mm-hmm.
and they invaded the place and they split off the southern portion of Iraq, which is now Kuwait, installed a puppet government, and had Anglo-Persian oil that the British government owned 51% of, set to efficiently exploiting Iraqi oil, now Kuwaitian oil. So all of this was going on. And remember, in this oil thing, the former Shah of Iran was advised by Henry Kissinger, the U.S. Secretary of State, to call for the formation of OPEC. And when that first crisis occurred in 1974,
Mm-hmm.
that was at Kissinger's urging. Now, a former roommate of mine at UCLA, his name's Fasa, was a junior flip in Nigeria's energy department, and he advised me that he was present during the meetings when this discussion went on. He was carrying a minister's briefcase.
Okay.
So I got a firsthand report for what went on, and it's interesting that now we give Iran the opportunity to return to its much desired efforts to westernize.
Okay. I mean, but they had that in the 50s already. Then they had Operation Ajax happen, which overthrew their ability to, because they wanted to control their resources, and it was a
Yeah,
no
but
no.
Shah of Iran was getting big bucks.
Mm-hmm.
My friend said Kissinger advised him to invest in German and Japanese automotive industrial
Mm.
manufacturing
Okay.
because they were going to make compact cars very, very valuable. So invest in them, beg, borrow, steal. And my friend said he'd become a billionaire thanks to that. And then he said after they formed and they were told to have a oil crisis to drive the prices up
Mm-hmm.
and encourage inflation, which would diminish the real value of their debt load, that they were going to eventually start pushing big American cars again. And then you look under the Bush administration, there was a tax break for an SUV that weighed either 5,200 or 5,800 pounds, and they ate that up over there. See, it's a game like OPEC boost oil prices, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the pump prices go up. It
Mm.
takes a minimum of 9 months for the oil pumped under the new price to get to the United States. Usually it takes a year and a half, closer to 18 months. So when they boost the price, they're boosting it on refined oil that they acquired at a much lower price, and they're making a huge profit. Also, they really don't have to buy it, they're selling it to themselves on consignment, of
Mm.
which they get a percentage of the cost. So
Wow.
when Standard Oil says it has to pay extra prices for oil that OPEC made more expensive, it's lying to you, because the oil they're using was at a very much reduced price, and they don't have to pay out of pocket. They have a deal worked up where they shoot back a percentage of what they make because they get it on deferred consignment.
See, my thing is like, what about the tariff situation? Was the Supreme Court ruled against Trump collecting
They didn't
tariffs?
rule against him. What
Okay.
they said was he has more draconian methods available. That was the least onerous. See, in other words, if you
Mm.
are importing steel and the tariff is $10 a ton, you still can import all you want to. But the Supreme Court, in Roberts' opinion, said he could impose an embargo or a quota. So Trump has got the thing of saying, okay, we can't charge you $10 a ton, but we can restrict you to 10,000 tons from this country. That's all you can bring in, or none at all. So the problem is this.
Mm.
Up until World War II, we had a very high tariff, and effectively over 180 some years, 90 years, it was found to have increased the wages of American workers and protected and encouraged the development of American industry. At the end of World War II, Asia was in ruins, and so was Europe, and we had nobody to sell our manufactured goods to. So you came up with the Marshall Plan in Europe,
Right.
and you came up with MacArthur being shogun over in Japan, and Congress reduced tariffs down to flat zero for these particular areas so they could get back on their feet. Once they got on their feet, instead of reimposing the tariffs, they didn't. And what wound up happening is smart entrepreneurs said, hey, if we export our manufacturing facilities overseas, we don't have to pay as much for them. We pay lower wages. We won't have these pesky unions to deal with, and we can make a lot more profit. And that's what they've done, and the American worker has suffered. Eh,
Mm.
We've done something that hurts us, so there's no reason for it. Interestingly enough, if you keep up with such things, this horrible tariff has been ended, but the people who were subject to these tariffs have said, oh, well, you know what? You can't do it, but we're going to keep paying them anyway. And then you have the spectacle of China that agreed to a 55% tariff rate that the U.S. could charge it, but only
Mhm.
charge 7 to 15% on American goods because they so much depend on our markets. Go look in your kitchen drawer and see if you can find anything in there that's not made in China.
It's all up in Walmart, man. What I think is crazy. They're supposed to be
Yeah,
our enemies, right? And they all in our economy.
I'm using a cell phone here, an
Mhm.
iPhone. When I got it delivered, I asked it an update. It stopped in mainland China 3 times where it was made before it hit a jet plane and flew across the Pacific to California, to LAX. So this thing is made in China. And
Right,
you don't think these guys, smart as they are, haven't snuck in a back door to this whole system. So
right.
Macs, desktops, you know, iPhones, iPads, uh, laptops, they're all made in China. You know, Android, they're made in China. Think
That's
about it.
right. That's right.
And they just did something that is a technological coup. I've got a ring light around here. It's 10 watts.
Mhm.
It's not powerful. The United States has been experimenting with 80-watt lasers that can burn a hole in a quarter inch of a steel very quickly to transmit laser signals from satellites down to Earth. They can't last very long because they burn out. The Chinese have been regularly experimenting over the last month with a laser that's only 8 watts, which is
Wow.
less than this ring light, and they've solved the optical problem. They've already got a jump on us right there.
Mm.
So we're sitting around here fooling around, and we've got one party hollering about tariffs. It's illegal. The reason they're upset, by the way, is because it's something effective that works. And did you
Mm.
hear him during the State of the Union speech? He said, and by the way, he didn't say it, but for the big dummies in the back, we're using tariffs to get our way with certain military and national security matters.
Yeah.
So that is one of the things that can be done if you back off all of this rhetoric on these little special interest agendas and start being effective at what you do. You can get a lot done. So I'm not mad at him. And there are other ways where he can do something more draconian. They acknowledged he has the authority to impose embargoes or quotas on how much of something comes in, and he can impose duties, but not
Mhm.
tariffs.
Hmm.
So, in other words, he was being polite about it. They said, no, you can't be polite. You got to leave it to Congress. But if you want to really kick ass, we can't cut you off.
So, but like the way the media shapes it is like it's the opposite of what you're saying. So they really are misleading a lot of us about
Yes.
these things. And like I was talking about today about Trump, I say, I'm not privy to what he's under in terms of his pressure and the expectations of his office. Only a small group of people can really identify as it relates to the pressures or whatever decisions you got to make. Because I don't even understand this thing. I think Trump is like he's really good at making deals and getting the most out of certain things. And like I think he's looking at the long term versus
Yeah,
like the
he
short
is.
term.
See, these people don't think in terms of the long term. They think in terms of political expediency. The
Right.
American memory is 2 years, which is the length of a congressional term, and I can get away with becoming a very rich person.
Yeah.
Elian Omar, her husband can get fed inside information, and they can become mega millionaires in just a few years before they get
Mm.
past their mid 30s. And
Hmm.
by the way, ejecting her from the Foreign Affairs Commission, you know what that was about?
What was it about?
Top secret information flows through them, eyes only, behind closed doors. And to give somebody with her indicated inclination to be hostile toward the interest of the United States, it just doesn't make sense to allow her to continue being privy to secrets,
Right. That
top
makes sense.
secret stuff.
Duh. Right.
Kick her ass off. You talk too much shit. And
Yeah.
also, by the way, this is the other thing. What I was talking about the backpack carried explosives coming across the border in the tens of thousands.
Mm-hmm.
Our intelligence community has traced between 180 and close to $300 million of that Minnesota money that has gone to
Mm,
ISIS and Al Qaeda to finance their operations that's come from these bozo idiots in Minnesota, including that governor, Waltz,
mm-hmm.
and they are using it to endanger American citizens. This is war.
Mm,
They are sworn to kill us. They'll strap on dynamite and blow themselves up to get us. They'll play kamikaze, hijack an airplane, and fly it into the Twin Towers. So you're messing with this kind of group, and you provide them maybe $300 million that's known about now so they can finance what they want to do to us? What is the matter with you?
I mean, we put to death Julius and Ethel Rosenberg for less, I guess. I mean, they was convicted in court and they were put to death. This back in June 19th, 1953. But we went from it's like we rewarding people for their bad behavior, for their betrayal. Like we actually are propping them up. It's like weird with the what's your take on the Clintons testifying in Congress about their connection with Epstein?
Well, you know what? I don't know. I wasn't there. I didn't hear
Uh-huh.
it. And considering what I've been doing for more than the last half century, I'd know better than to speculate on something like that if I don't get a chance to review the evidence.
Mm-hmm.
Have some suspicions, but I have a sneaking suspicion there's something else going on here.
Mm-hmm.
Intelligence. Well, okay. Have you ever heard of Matahari?
Oh yeah, the spy from World War I, alleged spy, sex entertainer or whatever, sex
Yeah,
worker.
she got executed by firing squad.
Right.
And intelligence agencies have long relied upon the sex drive of humanity to secure compromising moments they can use for extortion and
Right.
also to listen to pillow talk and get secrets as
Mm-hmm.
somebody that lets it all come out talking to what they think is a loyal lover who isn't. And I wouldn't be surprised that that hasn't happened.
Mm-hmm.
But I also wouldn't be surprised that somebody behaved as an alpha, and alpha males and females tend to be the most sexually active people in a pack.
Mm-hmm.
And Epstein doing what he was doing, I wouldn't be surprised if they got brought in on it.
Mm-hmm.
Or in the alternative, I think about this sometimes. People are always walking up to me to want to take a picture. I'll take a
Right.
picture with anybody. I don't
Right.
know. Smile at them, shake their hands, glad they enjoyed whatever it was induced them to want to take a picture.
Yes, sir.
If you're in public life, you shake hands and you show up places and all kinds of stuff. Your
Mm-hmm.
social secretary says you need to be at this function. Okay, yeah, there's some people you need to see there about that project involving Great Britain and,
Mm-hmm.
what we're going to do about getting more Pegasus engines for these AV 8 Harriers that the Marine Corps says are getting worn out. All right, I'll
Right.
be there. So you may or may not know what's going on, and the person that's putting it on may have something filthy going on in the back rooms or upstairs or out back. You don't know it, but you're just there because you're there. So I
Right.
don't know.
Right.
It could be totally innocent or it can be very bad.
I mean, but what's the
And
difference from Epstein count like Hugh Hefner? Was he not collecting compromising information on people at the Playboy Mansion? I mean, it
you
got
I actually, through my ex wife, got personally acquainted and good friends with his first ex wife.
okay.
She was well, I think she's passed on, but she was a fascinating person, very intelligent. And she had some stories, and I think Hugh Hefner was just doing it is sort of shooting the bird at everybody. F you, I can do
Mm-hmm.
it. And,
Mm-hmm.
some people would qualify for freak status. And they've got unlimited access to give these parties. And That's what they do.
Mm-hmm.
So he cornered that market, and now his daughter, who operates the business, banned centerfolds for 3 whole years. You know what her first centerfold was?
Well,
A tranny.
interesting. Mm.
So she had this dude in there with his thing tucked up under a strap, and that was the centerfold with boobs bouncing bare.
Interesting. I mean, did she understand her market? I mean,
Yeah,
father's
but I mean, that's why
demographic.
Playboy isn't what it used to be.
Mm. Okay. It's just decline of Western civilization 101. Right
Yeah,
now,
really,
what's
that's
going
what it is.
on?
What is the old saying? Hard times make strong men. Strong men make good times. Good times produce weak men. Weak men cause hard times.
Oh, that's
And it's a
deep right there.
cycle.
Wow. Yeah.
You
Wow.
know, the rough guys really hammered it out. They put it together. Things got good. And then you got all the little effete ones that run around hollering black, wouldn't know what the devil to do if they really were called upon to do something. But
Mm.
they talk this smack and then they weaken the community that they're supposed to be helping. And then
Okay.
that produces all of those people that are special pronoun types. And they don't know what they are, and they get encouraged to forget about their duties and responsibilities. And politics becomes crooked, where the ordinary guy doesn't even get a shiny quarter slice
Mm.
of watermelon and a good shot of whiskey out of it. You know, oh,
I hear, man. We are. It's why it's been interesting times. This is most definitely interesting times, Judge.
but you
But
know what's so bad about it?
what's that?
We have all of this potential, and if you put in place what you could, our grandchildren, or even some of us alive right now, would see Memphis become the largest, most powerful, well to do, prosperous, and best place to live as a city in the whole of the United States. Geography won't change. And we sit at the literal crossroads for the entire North American continent. Everything that gets shipped around this continent, whether it's going to Canada, the US, or Mexico, has to wind up going through Memphis one way or the other.
Right.
That's why this little rinky dink airport out here has the highest commercial tonnage volume in the whole world. Hong
Mm.
Kong usually has half, and it's in second place.
Okay. I mean, they trade places, right? They go back and forth
No,
sometimes. Maybe.
every now and then under the Biden administration, they jumped up 2 years. But other than that, for the last 40, 50 years, it's been Memphis.
Okay, but like my thing is like you dealing with people that are not really visionaries. These are people. Jimmy Hoffa had more vision than these people. Bugsy Siegel had more vision than these people.
These
These people
people
are
aren't
puppets,
really capable. They
right? They're
aren't
not
what,
really leaders, though. They're not leaders. They're
well, not
puppets.
only leaders, even if you just talked about what their professions are, they aren't exactly the best at that.
Hmm. I mean, a lot of these people are lawyers, like you, Judge.
How many trials have they had?
A
How
lot of
many
them won't make
serious
no names. They
cases?
just
How
sorry. I
many
mean,
serious cases have they had? How many first degree murder cases have they represented and defended on?
all right.
How many
Mhm.
thousands of cases have they had?
That's
What
right.
law school did they go to?
Hmm. That's a
See,
good point. It's a great point. They
see,
don't. Yeah.
I'm not belittling them. Some of them may be fine at what they do, but this is a place right now where if you really got it going on, you go someplace else. You don't come to Memphis.
Hmm.
I didn't grow up here. I got sent here more than a half century ago on a job,
Hmm.
and I was going to leave it. And I had a secretary take a list I'd made up of various cities, about 50 of them, with characteristics that I had researched about the geography, circumstances of these cities, and I had her mix them up and take the names off. And I was surprised that at the top of my list was Memphis in terms
Okay.
of its potential. So I've stayed here and I've seen it worked toward that potential, and then I saw it hit a plateau and it's fallen off because of greed, selfishness, ineptitude, and lack of the kind of heart that is necessary in a good leader, and the drive that ought to be there for somebody to make the thing work. It is not there. See,
Mm.
Memphis, when I got here, was kind of coasting after it had been the entry and exit for King Cotton's empire.
Mm-hmm.
They used to say the Old South began and ended at the front door of the Peabody Hotel. And when I got here, the Peabody was closed down and boarded up.
Wow.
Harold Ford got a thing together where he got the financing and the agreements to get Peabody Place in pocket. And now the Peabody is open and thriving, and the ducks come down the elevator. But it
Mm-hmm.
was closed when I got here. Beale Street was boarded up and closed up, but it got developed. Now it's got some problems, and sooner or later, those problems are going to have to be addressed because they are festering.
Mm.
And there's a driving engine down there that's not good, that needs to be curbed to an extent, or at least rationalized for the
Okay.
good of the people. So there are a lot of things that need to be done in this area that people are afraid of doing. And there is a good reason, because it's a dangerous area. Memphis is known as the first degree murder capital of the United States. And we're not talking about street crime, we're talking about uncharged homicides committed by low and high that do not result in criminal prosecutions, but are nonetheless calculated and carefully plotted out and planned murder.
Mm-hmm.
Murder. Remember what I was telling you about the barbecue situation
Yeah.
back
Ridley.
when?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a reality. That movie, John Grisham movie, The Firm,
Mm.
was not without its accuracies.
Mm.
And as a matter of fact, see, crime on a certain level gets disguised. Like we see all of these wars between the rappers, right?
Yeah.
Based on information I have, it's not really about that. It's about money laundering.
Mm-hmm.
The rap industry is a great opportunity to launder money. But the people that want the money laundered want meticulous books kept. And the people that are laundering the money sometimes either are not prone to that accuracy because they have another agenda, getting high, partying,
Mm-hmm.
or eating shrimps and drinking champagne dome, smoking long cigars and showing out and flashing with the ladies at a club.
Right.
Sometimes the people that are supposed to be keeping the books take a little handful for themselves, but they pay with their lives when they do it. I suspect that's what may have happened with young Dolph, since they tried to hit him in Florida and on the West Coast, and they got him here at the Cupcake Shop.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I know they have defendants and there have been proceedings, but I do remember a would-be in-law. He had nothing to do with the crime, but he ran the numbers bank in South Central LA at one
Mm-hmm.
time, and he messed up the money. They told him he had a choice: die or take a dive. He took the dive. He did 1 year, 1 day in a California penitentiary. They got out. They gave him some apartment buildings for retirement and some hamburger stands. And he was a very interesting character.
That is interesting. That's not a bad deal, to be honest with you. It's how you know.
No, but I mean, he used to have Polaroids where he'd have rap 20s, literally 3 feet high on a 50-foot long dining room table with all his boys standing around and the money counting machines around the corner.
Wow.
He was running bank out in South Central LA
Mm-hmm.
for certain other people.
Okay.
Now, that happens. But you see, they play it off as though it's some rap industry BS.
Right.
Another thing they do like that, and I had a multiple defendant homicide trial in my courtroom 35 years ago. Oppenheimer De Beers sent four assassins over to murder seven people who wouldn't go along with an agreement they wanted them to take. They
Wow.
killed four of them outright, shot up the fifth one, were about to put a bullet in his head. MPD came in a rush because they were next door on a domestic disturbance call. The assassins just dropped the guns, sat politely in my courtroom for several weeks during the trial. And we broke for the weekend. But
Hmm.
when we came back Monday, there were no defendants. The U.S. State Department had given them diplomatic immunity, put them on an airplane, and flew them back to South Africa.
Wow. Mm.
But you see, what we found out was not so much that. We heard about what this organization, Oppenheimer De Beers, was doing. You've heard of tribalism and all of the killing in Africa behind tribalism.
Hmm.
It wasn't the tribes, it was Oppenheimer De Beers. And they were simply saying, you sell us these diamonds for this price, or we will prop up your rivals and kill you off. And Oppenheimer De
Wow.
Beers presented it as tribalism, and the real deal was crime.
That's blood diamonds for real.
For
Right. Right.
real.
Wow. Wow.
What happened is these guys got a strike down here at a national park in Arkansas, and they had a mining permit, and they found diamonds.
Hmm.
And Oppenheimer De Beers wanted those diamonds, not so much because they needed them, but because 99.9 plus percent of the world's mined diamonds are sitting in a vault in England where they have a crown monopoly because they paid the English monarchy a certain tithe every year for the privilege.
Okay.
So the Queen had her hands in the blood diamond business.
Hmm. So hands are bloody, huh? I mean, but it makes sense. Like, they say that the Jack the Ripper was a member of the royal family, so they used
I was
to.
expected to have been Edward the Seventh,
Right. So, what do you
who
think
liked to
about
get his
Prince?
freak on.
Hey, Prince Andrew. Speaking of Prince Andrew, what's your take on him? Is he really
I
in
don't
trouble?
know, don't care.
Mm.
I think it's parasitical to have a family that because the right folk got it on and did the
Mhm.
wild thing one night, you get all of that wealth because you're supposed to be running the nation, which, which consists of your subjects, not your fellow citizens.
This is like the world is a strange place to be in, Judge. But what do you make about all this? Are we out in a masculinity crisis? You would say. I'm looking at all these rappers and entertainers getting these beefs, these black males, like Ti and 50 Cent, and then you look at Corey Holcomb and Anton Daniels. Do we have a? Is it has it always been like this? But
No, it
because we got
hasn't been.
social media, it's more
The
better
media got
known.
into black exploitation and a new crop took over the media. The former barons of industry got kicked out because Hollywood movie studios were going broke in the face of color TV
Right.
in the late 1960s. So these new guys came in with a paradigm, which was instead of every Thursday and Sunday having two movies that always changed, no matter how good their box office was.
Hmm.
And you got two movies, two or three cartoons, and a sub feature, and you walked in anytime you wanted and you paid 50 cents or a quarter as an adult.
Hmm.
Popcorn was a nickel.
Wow.
And you
Wow.
could stay all night long if you wanted. But they changed that and the price went up to $1.50, and everybody going, ooh, that's like paying $30 for a movie ticket, like for one ticket. And the popcorn went up to $1.50 too. And everybody going, $1.50 for popcorn. They lost their mind. You know, what is this? And then they started saying, We need a new market. Who? All these minorities who are craving to see themselves on the silver screen. We can show them themselves. Well, what kind of thing do you think we need, Al? I don't know, George. Phil, have you got an idea? Let's just get the worst of the worst that so many can identify with and have fantasies of being. This new thing with this drug, cocaine, it's not a new drug. We know that, but it's getting popular. Maybe we can do something with that. Then they had, what is it? Uh,
Superfly.
no, before Superfly, it was Fred the Hammer Williams,
Okay.
uh,
Oh, Black Caesar.
Black Caesar. They had
Mm-hmm.
that one, and I remember it was about 8 of us went down from UCLA one evening. We were studying, and we saw that movie, and we looked at each other. Where's LAPD? You mean the LAPD would be there after that shootout? No way. You don't go do that in Los Angeles and you ride off into the sunset smoking a big long Churchill cigar. Sunrise, not the sunset. This is ridiculous. What is that? This dude was a drug dealer, man, and he
Mm-hmm.
was the hero. What in the hell do we just look at?
Mm. Wow.
See, it was noticeable.
Mm-hmm.
And that appealed to people, and they were actively recruited. So they got up on an appetite with this. And if you are a man, there's a weird thing about Hollywood. Since the turn of the 19th, 20th century, young men all over the world got ideas on what masculinity was by watching movies.
Mm-hmm.
Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
They'd have sayings. They'd try to act like Humphrey Bogart. They used to
Mm-hmm.
have to say, man, don't try to Bogart nobody, man. He had that style, that tough guy
Mm-hmm.
style.
Right.
And that's how they would model themselves. Now, think what Hollywood has been putting out as a male model over the last few decades that these young folk have been emulating, and there's nothing to offset it. Everybody they see is being delicate, emotional, and refined, unable to control themselves emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
They go off. They believe they don't have opinions. They're not critical thinkers. They feel like they're supposed to give it to me, everything, I guess, except sports. And nowadays, with the way the rules are, I guess, give it to them. By
Mm-hmm.
the way, I acquired a souvenir Rawlings football helmet
Okay.
from the 1930s, which was in good shape.
Wow.
And I showed it to somebody. I said, do you realize that the pros used to wear this when they played pro football? No way. I said, now compare it to what they've got on now, and they're all got a heebie jeebies. Oh, he might get a concussion. Oh, my God. Now, no holds barred. You could get up after you got tackled if you did so before the whistle blew, and that's what they wore right here.
It was like a leather helmet or something like that, or was it?
No, it
What
was
was it?
made out of pressed fiberboard
Oh,
with leather pieces. No pads, just webbing,
well, that's crazy, man.
and some felt put in it in certain places. you know,
Man, I guess, man, that's wow. This football so soft now. I mean, I ain't saying it's soft. It's still like
well, you
football.
played, didn't you?
No, I didn't play. I didn't play. I just enjoyed it.
I
But you
played
played.
it. I
You
played
played.
at high school in UCLA, and I'm
Uh-huh.
looking at these guys, and they have pedal pushers on with no knee pads. My knees still hurt, and not from somebody tackling me, just getting knocked on the ground and stuff.
Yes,
Like
sir.
these guys playing with no knee pads. Oh, like what? And then I said, man, they can't even hit anybody anymore. You got to do
Yeah.
what we call titty blocking now.
It's
And,
like almost flag
tackle him,
football, man.
son. Put your
Yeah.
shoulder in him.
It's an interest. It's like it's not. Yeah, I just they changed it. Even baseball changed. I guess baseball for the better. They time it now. I think there's a timer on the game because those games can last to 7 to 8 hours.
Have you ever seen a cricket match?
No, sir.
Have you ever heard of a challenge match?
Mm-mm.
These guys have one game going for 2, 3, 4, 5 days. They actually have cots where the players go to sleep. When somebody wants to bat, they go wake somebody up. And
That's
there are a bunch
crazy,
of
man.
folks, hey man, I'm like my cricket man. And they're around there with picnic baskets waiting for these guys to wake up at three
Wow, that's
o'clock in the
that's
morning. They
mm,
pitch to him. He hits the ball, but he's got the option to run the bases if he wants it. It's like, what is
that's crazy,
this?
man. That's cricket. You know what type of cricket is that again?
That's called a challenge match,
That's
I think.
crazy.
And I mean, it's like baseball comes from that. They called it rounders. It was a
Yeah.
streamlined cricket thing that got popular in the Civil War. I understand its purpose. People
Hmm.
would come out of factories and you'd spend a nickel to get in, and you could sit for 3 or 4 innings like you're hanging out at the bar or the club with your homeboys for happy hour and drink cheap beer and a hot
Hmm.
dog and then go home for dinner and read about what happened, on when the newspaper the next morning.
Right.
But man, it's weird. It's now the national sport for Japan, and I don't know what the American national sport is. Is it basketball, football, or what? It isn't baseball anymore.
Not most there, but you think about even the Dodgers, like them Japanese players and stuff. Japan's really dominating the game.
Yes.
Uh, they're now my favorite player is still Barry Bonds. I don't care what nobody say, but like in terms of like, it's interesting.
Well, I had the privilege of meeting Don Newcomb. I had a 4-hour conversation with
Hmm.
him while I was doing the show at the UCLA affair.
Hmm.
I met Jackie Robinson briefly, and
Wow.
I knew some of those players. Don Newcomb, in case you don't know, was hired along with Roy Campanolo at the same time as they hired Jackie Robinson.
That was a great wow.
But
That was
see,
awesome.
Don Newcomb wasn't but 17 when the Dodgers hired him, so they kept him in the minors for 2 years, and he was a pitcher. He's the only Major League Baseball pitcher to win every single pitching award. And man, look
Mm.
at here. This old brother walks into this function, and the woman he had with was movie star fine. Yes, she was. This was
Uh-huh.
20 some years ago. That was in those standards. Everybody looking, dude, man, that is outstanding. So he was telling us stories. Like, did you ever watch The Rifleman with Chuck Connors,
Hmm.
the tall blonde haired guy?
Right.
He played for the Dodgers too.
Mm.
And Newcomb was saying that was Jackie Robinson's bodyguard. He said what happened was a lot of the people didn't like him playing, so they try to hit him, beat him.
Hmm.
And they didn't wear the batting helmets then. So some pitcher tried to hit Jackie 2 or 3 times. Jackie got out of the way before he hit him. So Jackie was headed out to bust him right in his mouth because Jackie didn't take any nonsense,
Right.
according to Newcomb. But Chuck Connors ran out of the bullpen, this tall blonde white guy, and he busted the pitcher right in the jaw and knocked him out. So
Wow.
he got thrown out of the game, but thereafter, anytime it got hot and hostile, Connors would be out there to knock
That's
somebody out
cool.
on behalf of Robinson.
All right, I like
So
that.
I thought better about having watched him back in the 50s on that Western where he had that sawed off Winchester he'd twirl around with the
Hmm.
big loop. He
I got an
worked
uncle.
that thing.
Yeah, I got an uncle. He loves that type of show. He loves Rifleman and all those type of old Western shows. That bring back some memories, actually. So, Judge, you got anything? I guess we could wrap it up. I mean, you got so much to. Anything else you want to add? Before we get out of here.
Well, yeah. It's interesting. Fundamentally, the way this country has survived, prospered, and grown is by free speech and the development of consensus amongst the people. Sometimes that's bad, sometimes it's good, but in the end, it
Hmm.
usually works out okay. And it doesn't work when somebody tries to think they know better than the rest of the people and impose censorship.
Right.
For almost all of my life, the censorship was on profanity, vulgarity, pornography, but
Mm.
never on ideas. Now the censorship is on ideas.
Right.
You can have full frontal, weird, freak, human on animal sex if you want. That's all right. But you can't discuss ideas. And
Right.
something's wrong with that picture.
That's right.
The other thing is this anti masculine thing that has grown so big, toxic masculinity. The human race cannot operate, or at least not this national component of it, when you down half of the race.
That's right.
So that doesn't work. And the other thing is leave the kids alone. This thing about this rainbow exploitation is getting a little sick.
Mm.
Epstein and all the allegations that are attendant upon his circumstances, I mean, that's being pushed by the major parties. That's what one party stands for, to allow that kind of thing, even though they
Mm-hmm.
haven't gotten bold enough to come out and say it yet. But that's what they're talking about when they push this theology in the schoolrooms. You can't have a cross, a
Mm.
Hebrew star, an Islamic crescent, a six-arm Shiva representation or Buddha, but you can put rainbow all down the hallway. People say, it's not a religion, Judge. I say, yes, it is. What's the God? I said, well, is Buddhism a religion? Yes, that's a religion. What's the God of Buddhism? Answer, none, whatever you want it to be. So the same thing with the rainbow cult. It's a theology. It deals with a set of behavioral precepts that are not good because they totally dismiss courage and bravery, duty, honor, obligation. It's what you want to be is paramount rather than what you owe humanity and the rest of the fellow citizens that you are surrounded with. So, I mean, what is it? It's nihilistic, it's failure. It wants you to think you can't succeed and that you should not be strong men and women, but you should be dependent on somebody taking care of you instead of
Mm.
pursuing opportunities and excellence.
Mm.
So,
Wow.
people, you can do it, get it together. Some of us will still be trying one way or the other, and maybe we can overcome this little rhino trick that they're doing. So, we'll see what happens.
I would encourage people to write you in though, and write Judge Joe Brown in. Because like the people need to be heard. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like, even last time when I talked to people one on one about you running, a lot of people didn't know you was running. Like you said, it was a lot of blockage, but at the same time, he said, I voted for Judge Joe Brown run. It's like, why? I said, well, imagine if Judge was able to help people know that he was running and things were kind of level playing field, but with all is fair in love and war, right? So whatever goes, goes. But I just want the people to be encouraged that there are people out here who have a heart to serve the people, who have the experience and all the stuff. I mean, Judge, you're a distinguished gentleman. Of course, you got the gravitas, you got, you like Ali, you talk the stuff and you can back it up. So I would think that hopefully that everything works out for you in your favor this Thursday. Because if you win, the people wins.
Well, look, that's not me. I don't have any urge to do this.
Mm-hmm.
It's like preachers say, I got called.
Yeah. Okay. Yes,
It's
sir.
like I'm a fireman
Mm-hmm.
and I'm walking down the street or driving down the street and I see a fire. Am I supposed to ignore it and drive elsewhere or stop and fight it?
Well,
I'm
you're
a
fine.
cop
Yeah.
and I see somebody getting done in, even if I'm
Mm-hmm.
off duty, I'm supposed to stop and see to that citizen's safety. That's what I've been doing. For
Mm-hmm.
50 years, I've been dealing with violence, theft, wrongdoing, people
Mm-hmm.
who have almost insurmountable problems. You straighten them out, both on the
Right.
individual and the collective level.
Mm-hmm.
I was the one that signed off on the orders setting the date of execution on a death penalty case. I was the one that had the responsibility of ensuring that as near as was humanly possible, at least as I could apply it, to make sure that somebody got their due process of law in a fair and equitable trial,
Yes, sir.
whether doing that was the popular thing to do or not. See, this is what I did. This was Some of this stuff is nasty. It's not nice,
Right.
but somebody's got to do it. So that's just me. I can't sleep at night if I let that go by. And you are the type of person, you, since I've known you for some years, you've always been interested in doing the right thing.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I try. I mean, Lord knows. I try. Thank you so
Well,
much,
yeah,
Judge.
you
That means a
do.
lot.
You
Hmm.
do real well. And see, the future's in you.
Hmm.
I'm not going to see any of this, but I
Hmm.
don't have any ambition. All I need is one term. I doubt whether I'd even feel like the second one.
Hmm.
But there's some things that need to be put in place to make this what it ought to be, because it is necessary to not only the local assemblage of people, not
Right.
only to the state of Tennessee, but to the
Hmm.
United States of America, because it is at the crossroads for the United States where you have unlimited potential for water power, no smog inversion layer, and you have unlimited potential for manufacturing. You have the possibility for having the next .com revolution equivalent right here. You've got everything you need to have greatness, except you lack leadership.
Mm.
So
Thank you, Judge.
some of the people need to get a chance to see it in operation, how it looks,
That's right.
and be guided and inspired from that. And what we have now just isn't getting it.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you so much for that. How can people follow you or keep in touch or like seeing you like support whatever?
Well, I can't raise any money until I get on somebody's ballot, and I
Hmm.
got to find out one way or the other. I can guess function as a write-in candidate, but there are all kinds of things about financing and organizations and getting the word out. Um, it's gotten hyper expensive these days, and some of the worst leaders are actually well funded because they're not good leaders. They're good figureheads for somebody else calling the shots, so they get lots of money.
Yeah,
So
and it's problematic because they don't answer to we the people. They answer to they sponsors, which is not normally we the people. Because I even look at the Shelby County mayoral race and certain people that are leading, they're getting all this money. But yeah, I look at their social media, they're not tracking, even on social media, like you're tracking, you go viral all the time, Judge. These folks could barely get 30 people to watch their ads, but they're getting all this money
yeah,
pouring to their coffers.
like look at somebody. He gets anywhere from $750,000 to $1.5 million, and he's never gotten more than 1,700 votes. That doesn't make sense. By the way, you know where you find stuff out like that?
Well,
There's a website. It's called followthemoney.org.
okay, yes,
It's
sir.
being absorbed into another one, but you can still get it. Followthemoney.org. At first, it seems complicated, but when you get into manipulating it, you can input your individual you're concerned with. You put in the state what office he or she has held, and you can find out who's been giving them money, how much, when they gave them the money, and what for. And it's very interesting. Like, remember when all of this furor was going on about the pipeline in
Right.
North Memphis? Some of the people hollering the loudest were getting the most money from the pipeline folk.
Mm.
you know, so somebody's walking around talking about they're pro gun, but they're getting money up Nashville and up and other parts outside of the state because they're anti-gun.
Right.
Matter of fact, they led a march into the state capitol protesting guns, but they walk around one like they pack iron for real. And they go around and talk to the gun stores and gun ranges saying how friendly they are to guns, but they've been campaigning on the other side about they're going to snatch everybody's armaments. So the good people will be helpless for the bad guys who will be let loose again for death and theft on our streets by our local officials who don't want the Memphis Safe Task Force here. And by the way, have you looked at the componentry?
I don't know, sir.
They've got IRS here as part of it.
I heard they got the bulletproof vest and the guns, but
No,
I
no,
know
no, 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 no. There's another reason they're here. They have Homeland Security.
okay.
They've got ATF, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. Now, why is IRS here?
I do some audits, ain't a lot of
No,
audits.
but wait a minute. Was Al Capone a killer?
Allegedly, never proven in court, but
He never got charged with it.
right,
But
right.
what did they get him on?
Tax evasion, not paying no
Yes. What did
tax.
they get Edmund Ford on?
Uh, tax.
Evasion.
Uh-huh.
That's why they've got it here. And that's why these clowns want them gone because they're being looked at. That's why RS is here. Like, dude, where'd the money go? You ain't
Right.
got a friend in
Mm.
court now. We're really trying to enforce the law. So
Wow. Mm.
that's why they want it gone.
I heard that. Well,
Homeland Security. See, Memphis not only is the geographic center of the United States when it comes to distribution, this is where all the terrorists will come through if it hits the fan. And that's why you have Homeland Security here, because this is where the explosives, the detonators, and stuff are going through. And we have one of the most vital targets in America right here in Memphis. You know what it is?
supercomputer. Uh,
They test the propellers for every nuclear submarine and balance them right here in Memphis.
wow, I didn't know that. Wow.
And this is the only
Whoa.
place where they do it. Guaranteed target. You get the
Wow.
nuclear submarines out, the attack submarines and the ballistic missile submarines. You just crippled the U.S. Navy because they're
Exactly.
always hitting some debris in the water and they get dinged up and they need to be balanced. When they dock them, they
Wow.
deal with the balancing right here. Now, granted, they use computers and simulators and stuff, and they get to the specifics and they do their magic here and then send what they need to do back to where the sub is. But this is where they do it. It's a nuclear target.
Mm.
And
I
you
didn't.
got
Wow,
all
that's
of
so
this. The I
wild.
40 is the main highway in America. It goes from New York all the way to Los Angeles. And it
Mm.
spreads off into Chicago, Colorado, Kansas, Oregon, and all of these places. Everything comes through here.
Wow.
So the DEA is here looking to see what's going on. Why is ICE here? Because most people who get off in this thing here illegally, they wind up having to come through Memphis. I-40 is here.
Hmm.
So we are very centrally located, and our idiots are trying to say, get them out. They're bad. Yeah, well, guess what, dude? You couldn't stop the corruption, the robbery, the murders, the assaults. You couldn't make it safe for the women, the children, the grandmothers, the aunts, the nieces, the girlfriends, the wives, the sisters. You couldn't make it safe for them. So you failed at what you got appointed or elected to do.
Right.
Get out, be
Mm.
gone, get the hints. I denounce you.
Repent, repent, repent. That's right.
Yes.
Well, Judge, thank you so much for this edutainng session. I know people are going to really enjoy this one and going to be talking about it Monday morning because you definitely got a following. So, I mean, thank you for speaking out and standing on business 10 toes always, Judge. Thank
Yeah, and like, hey, you're doing wrong. You don't think I'm gonna let you get away with it?
you. That's right.
I'll cause you trouble. Be careful what you might ask for. If I held the office, I'd be reasonably quiet and just make sure it got done. But
Mhm.
you take that away, yak, 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 I'm going to tell on you. And
That's
I
right.
knows where you done buried the bodies.
That's right. That's right. Yes, sir. We
Anyway,
thank you.
seriously, we can do better in this town. It's us. It's ought to be great. Let's make it that way.
Thank you, Judge. And we're gonna be praying and hoping and that we could vote for you on somebody's ticket, or if not, we'll just write you in.
Anyhow, up and away, as the immortal Kate Crusader said.
That's right.
Yes, go. Good seeing you again, young man. We
Likewise,
have to do
sir.
lunch or
Always a bit.
something.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Ciao. And that does it for tonight's edition of We All Be News Free Dixie for the 21st century. This is the one and only Brother Ron, R2C2H2, the artivist. I'm glad I was able to get the judge on tonight. You know, I know it's a Mercury retrograde, and Judge, he wanted to talk because a lot of things happened last week, and I'm dealing with a lot of things right now with the passing of my boss and aunt, Dorothy Mason, unexpectedly. Like, she passed away Monday morning last week, and I talked to her right before she stopped breathing. I was on the phone with her at 8:48 a.m. We talked. She was looking forward to the future. I text her. She texted me back. Then, like at 9:19, I got a call from my aunt Liz saying that my auntie Dorothy wasn't breathing. They're trying to resuscitate her. Her husband at home with her husband, my uncle E. They're trying to resuscitate. EMTs came. Then 10:31 a.m., my mom called me to confirm that my aunt Dorothy was passed on, became a righteous ancestor. So I'm glad that Judge remembered my request for him to come on the show because I forgot about all that. Been grieving and deep reflection and thoughts, and the show must go on. But I thank you all for those who sent support and words of condolences and things of that nature. You are, and thank the sister Duckworth. Happy New Year, good sister. You always been a true supporter of the We All Be movement. Thank you for blessing us tonight. You don't know how much that meant for you to bless me the way you did. So, with that said, we're gonna tune out to tune in to get in where you don't fit in, because human salvation lies in the hands of the crazy maladjusted. And this is your brother Ron. You got the words from Brother Heard and Guest. Please support We All Be TV2 on YouTube. And also you can find us on rumble.com/ We All Be TV. Y'all know what the deal is. You want to support us financially? April the 1st will mark 20 years of We All Be. That's right, boys and girls and scholars and laymen. 20 years of We All Be. Because we all be in it to win it. Take care. Be blessed. Be a blessing. You're a winner, because a winner is just a loser who tries one more time. Never give up, give out, give in. This is Brother Ron signing off so you can get in where you don't fit in, because human salvation lies in the hands of the greatly maladjusted. One love. Good night. Yeah, yeah.